What is up and welcome everyone to another live stream. We're off Among Us and back on camera. If you joined us for that fun little gaming session yesterday where I also answered some of your fantasy football related questions, thank you very much for that. Appreciate the support. Thought I'd try something different out. Why not, right? But we have a lot to cover in not much time today, so I'm cutting to the chase pretty quickly here. If you are new here, feel free to like and subscribe. And most importantly, pop any of your last minute fantasy football related questions that you may have into the live chat below and I will get to those ASAP. Quick reminder, folks, we did just drop our merch about 2 weeks ago. You can find the link to our new branded Armchair Fantasy Football merch in the description below. Pretty good deals, 30-day free return policy, so make sure you take advantage of that. All right, I'm going through injuries and roster updates super quickly, and then the floor is yours. MA football guys in the chat, good to see you. Justin Jefferson, unfortunately, is out for this week. Heavy Justin Jefferson owner. I feel like anybody who had first or second overall in their respective drafts are kind of in the same spot. Minnesota did not activate Justin Jefferson from the IR. He was deviating between questionable and doubtful the entire week. I mean, look for him to come off the IR in week 11, but definitely get him out of your lineup if you're banking on him coming back this week. Kyler Murray, the man in the thumbnail, is in for this week. He has gone 11 months without playing football, so I do want you guys to temper your expectations against the Falcons this week. I think he'll be fine. Just a little bit of a profile on Kyler Murray. He'll be operating with a healthy Marquise Brown. He was the QB3 back in 2020 with a prime DeAndre Hopkins. So again, temper those expectations. But this is a dual threat quarterback. This is somebody with rushing upside. He's averaging more than 500 rushing yards per season so far in his career, even with the abbreviated seasons where he was injured a little bit or just out. Ja'Marr Chase is in despite the back issues going through this week. Chase took a really hard fall last week, and he's been questionable all this week. He's good to go as part of a pretty healthy Bengals offense. Tyler Boyd's good. T. Higgins is back and good. Joe Burrow no longer has the calf injury. So this guy's good to go in that high-powered offense. No word yet on whether or not Ja'Marr is on a snap count. I would assume not unless we see a mention of it. Chris Godwin is expected to play here in Week 10. He'll be facing a middle-of-the-pack Titans secondary. Godwin leads all Tampa Bay targets by 2. He has 62 targets, while Mike Evans, who again has not been extended and will likely be an unrestricted free agent in the offseason, has 60 just behind him. Judging by the performance we saw from the Buccaneers secondary last week, getting torched by CJ Stroud and the Texans for 470 passing yards, I like the Bucs passing offense a bit more. If their defense starts to give up 30 points per game and has more performances like what we saw last week, the offense needs to pass it 50 times a game to keep up, and that's great news for guys like Godwin, Evans, and Cade Otton at the tight end position as well. KJ Osborne is out for this week. He's out against the Saints due to an ongoing concussion. With Justin Jefferson out as well, this obviously gives plenty of opportunity to Jordan Addison and to TJ Hawkinson, Powell as well in that offense. Desmond Ridder remains the backup in Atlanta. Not too much of a shocker here. Taylor Heineke is expected to be the guy going forward. And no Cam Akers means there's an expanded role for Alexander Mattison. Again, not much of a difference here either, but Akers was getting a few touches per game as opposed to, he was getting more usage and more snaps on average than Ty Chandler. So maybe we see a bit more line of work for Alexander Mattison. That's going to be a close game between the Saints and Vikings, but if the Vikings can get out ahead and it's more of a run-heavy scheme, this really starts to rear its head. And Robert Woods is in this week. Still trying to figure out who we can rely on in this Texas wide receiving core. Nico Collins is down. I'm assuming we'll see a lot of Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz. And Robert Woods, as long as he's not on a pitch count as well. I see MA football guys in here. Good to see you, man. We are going to pop the chat up on the screen now that I'm no longer a boomer and know how to do that. In theory. All right, we should be good. Okay. So MA football guy is saying the Pats are giving me a bellyache, so let's talk fantasy. Brock Purdy, Saquon Barkley, Travis Etienne, Devontae Adams, Chris Olave, Dalton Schultz, Devin Singletary, LVD. You might need to help me out on that one. Las Vegas defense. Dustin Hopkins. All right. Drop Singletary for Curtis Samuel and or Hopkins for Brandon McManus. I mean, we're really splitting hairs here when it comes to kickers, but I believe a lot more in that Jaguars offense. normally. However, they are going up against the 49ers. There's a fly in my shades. I'm going to go McManus here in that high-scoring offense. I think Hopkins and that offense in general is just going to have a little more trouble. Tough matchup for them. Tough matchup for both, but I believe in the Jags a little bit more. Blurpy says, Kyler or T-Law this week, Ferguson or McBride, full PPR. Just worried about Ferguson being in a blowout game and the Cowboys running the ball a ton. Blurpy, I love your line of thinking, and I'm kind of parallel with it, to be honest. I think this is a big Tony Pollard game. Kind of hoping so as a Tony Pollard owner who hasn't seen a touchdown out of him since week 1. We got 2 and haven't seen anything since. I do think it's a run-heavy game. We have a Giants team that literally has the worst offense in the league. They're deviating around 10, 11, 12 points per game. They are projected to lose by over 2 touchdowns. Vegas, last I checked, had the Cowboys favored by 16 points. So, yeah, I think it is going to be a run-heavy game. Maybe Ferguson gets involved early. He does have a favorable matchup. Obviously, everybody on that offense does. But Blurpy, I like the point you're bringing up. When it comes to CeeDee Lamb, when it comes to Brandon Cooks, when it comes to Jake Ferguson, obviously we do have a situation where we need a pass catcher to get involved early and often. Otherwise, they're going to be phased out of the game plan. All right. And then back to MA Football Guy. Drops Singletary for Curtis Samuel. I would take Curtis Samuel only because this is a pass-heavy offense. This is another situation, kind of like what I mentioned with the Buccaneers at the beginning of this live stream, where the defense is so god-awful, the offense has to go throw-heavy to keep up. And actually, for Curtis Samuel, MA Football Guy, fun fact, Washington is throwing the ball more often than anybody else. They throw the ball 68% of the time. They run it 32% of the time. I do think, also, when we look around, Sam Howell's spreading the ball out a lot. As of this week, 4 receivers have at least 40 targets. So we're talking Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, now Jahan Dotson. He's caught fire as of late. And, of course, Logan Thomas as well. I'm going to go Curtis Samuel and trust that not only is Sam Howell going to spread the ball out, but once again, they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. That's going to be an interesting game. Commanders, Seahawks, I could see like 60 total points in that game. I really could. 2 bottom-tier defenses with decent wide receiving cores, and I try and find the happy medium between the Seahawks and the Commanders. I don't think the Commanders' receiving core is phenomenal. I do think they're deep. McLaurin, Dotson, Samuel, and Thomas. Long story short, MA Football Guy, I'm going to go Curtis Samuel, a pass catcher in a flex spot. I feel pretty good about that. All right. We have Richard in here. Good to see you, Richard. Standard League, Deontay or Ridley, and T-Law or Carr. Oh, all right. I'm actually going to go Derek Carr just because of the weak opposition when we're looking at the Vikings at the moment. I'm going to go Derek Carr because I'm not taking a whole lot of quarterbacks against the 49ers. I went out of my way and Richard, this is just me backing up my word. I went out of my way in the league where I have Trevor Lawrence it's a half PPR league, to go and get another quarterback. I think I went out and made sure I made a trade for Brock Purdy or something, right? So I'm really not feeling, so actually on the other end of that matchup, I'm not feeling Trevor Lawrence right now. He's got good weapons. I do think he'll have a good rest of season. He's just in a tough stretch of schedule right now. And the Jags in general are going to have a tough schedule because they were a playoff team. So I'm going to go Derek Carr. Derek Carr against that pretty poor Vikings team. They do blitz a lot, so I think that's going to open up some opportunity for down the field plays. And also, we've been seeing him hit Olave a little bit more. Michael Thomas, despite what we heard happen a few days ago, is playing. So obviously, Alvin Kamara, the check down king for Derek Carr, and it's a healthy offense going up against a defense that likes to blitz a lot. I think that's going to bite them here. So, Richard, I'm going Derek Carr over Trevor Lawrence. Even though rest of season, I do think that Trevor Lawrence has the better season. But standard between Deontay and Ridley. Deontay Johnson going up against the Packers secondary. It's going to be interesting to see if Jair Alexander for the Packers shadows or just drops on one side and waits for whoever's going to be over there, because it's not just Deontay Johnson, it's George Pickens. And then you have Calvin Ridley, Mr. Inconsistent, going up against the 49ers. They've been more of a bend but don't break defense. This is close, but because of the volume we've seen from Deontay Johnson, and actually I'm going to pop up a different window here for you, Richard. Because of the volume that historically we have seen from Deontay Johnson, and this even spans into last season, I'm going to trust him a little bit more than Calvin Ridley, who, is in his first season. since not playing football for a full year. Diontae Johnson is going to give us volume. 6 targets, 6, 14, 9. We can do the math here. 35 divided by... They're saying he's played in 5 games. That's not true. They're probably counting today. 35 divided by 4. We're looking at about 9 targets a game. If we look in the past, you are not going to find many receivers who have cleared 140 targets for 3 straight seasons. One of these was with Big Ben. 2 of these was, actually. And then this was with Kenny Pickett. A bit of a drop-off in terms of reception percentage or catch percentage, however you want to term it. But in general, and we also have one of the most improbable seasons ever. We're looking at Jakobi Meyers-esque here. 147 targets and no touchdowns. Diontae Johnson, though, what I'm trying to say here, gets a lot of volume. This is not an exciting offense. The Steelers don't look great, right? They're not the most attractive fantasy haven by any means. But Diontae Johnson has historically seen a lot of volume. And we've even seen a little bit this season, he doesn't need a touchdown to thrive, right? If we're looking at standard, we've got 8.5 here. We've got 7.9. We're seeing down the field throws for the most part. Yards per catch, we're looking at about 11.5, 12 for his career. Throwing down the field a little bit more is Pickett in his direction. A volume-based wide receiver, too. That's terminology that I like for the most part. Again, if he's the 2 on that team and Jair is paying attention to George Pickens more than he is Diontae Johnson, I think that's good news for us. I really do. So that's kind of what I am going to do. All right. So we're going to go Diontae Johnson, Richard, and then we're going to go Derek Carr. I am fading the Jaguars. I do have the 49ers winning this game. I think it'll be relatively close. But in general, you're really going to have to find some tough situations to get me to go head-to-head with that defense with some confidence when we look at our offensive weapons. All right? So, Richard, hope that helps, man. And then MA Football Guy saying those questions were for another league. Gotcha. Oh, okay. This is for another league. Sam Howell, Derrick Henry, Gus Edwards, Calvin Ridley, Brandon Ayuk, Evan Ingram, Jakobi Meyers, Jets defense, Evan McPherson, Davante Adams, and Logan Thomas on the bench. I mean, who would have thought, right? Who would have thought we would have to put Davante Adams on the bench? Going up against the Jets, I don't hate the move. Sauce Gardner's going to be going up against him. He gets pretty handsy and gets away with a lot of it. Davante Adams just not in a great spot right now. I like Myers over him because obviously, if we look here, Jakobi Meyers has just been getting more looks. Jakobi Meyers has, in general, been the better option. Again, folks, if you're just stopping in, we are answering your last second fantasy football related questions. I'm Corey. This is Armchair Fantasy Football. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe. We're almost at 900 subs. Would really appreciate getting to that very soon. We're trying to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. So any help with that goal would be absolutely awesome. All right, if we look at Myers, 62 targets. We have a catch percentage of about 2/3. Couple big plays, more volume-based, up there in touchdowns, leads Raiders receivers in touchdowns. This is somebody who was allergic to touchdowns a couple years ago in New England. No offense, MA Football Guy. He just had bad luck, and I'm sure you remember that. Davante Adams, more targets, more yards, less touchdowns. Not happy. We've had more red zone looks as of late for Jakobi Meyers. So I'm all right with us going with him here. At some point, right? At some point, MA Football Guy, the Raiders are going to wake up and start to use Davante. If you want to trade him off right now when he's at a decent value from the perspective of a lot of others, that's completely fine. But in all honesty, I'm really reluctant to use him right now. Like, extremely. So that's just kind of where I'm at on this. You don't have to align with that. And then MA Football Guy says, done on the first one, my guy. Yeah, thank you, man. You are awesome. Always coming in, leaving a like, subscribed from the start pretty much. You have been a huge supporter. So, yeah, thank you, man. Thank you to everybody here right now on this Sunday morning. We've got 54 minutes before kickoff for that first afternoon slate. Any other questions you've got, just let me know. In the meantime, we can go over some, I've got 1 or 2 at least, some streamer plays. I do think against this poor offense, we've got a case to be made with Rashid Shaheed. More so in PPR. Big play guy, right? I mean, I'm typically against numbers like this where it's low volume, high opportunity when we have somebody like Gabe Davis. But in a matchup like this against a Vikings defensive personnel that loves to blitz, I'm actually okay with it. I'm actually content with taking Rashid Shaheed in deeper leagues. I think a 10-team league, you really shouldn't be messing with him. But 12, double flex, super flex, 14-team leagues, absolutely. We really do want to mess with the possibility that Rashid Shaheed goes off and gives us some numbers. He's not the most consistent, so honestly, if you get something out of him this week, I say we go trade him. But if you're in a pinch, he has some good opportunity against the Vikings. All right, so good matchup, lots of upside. Any other questions you guys have, feel free to pop them in. I am now going to run over what I ran through at the very beginning of the live stream, give you guys some last-minute injury updates. Justin Jefferson, unfortunately, is out for this week. Minnesota did not activate him from the IR. We've got a pretty tough situation there, but again, if he's only out for 5 weeks and it's performing remotely close to what he was doing before, and you didn't sell him off early on, we're okay with that. We are completely okay with that. Look for him to come off the IR in Week 11. Kyler Murray, the man in the thumbnail, is in for this week after being gone for 11 months. He was the QB3 back in 2020 when D-Hop was the wide receiver, and he's averaging over 500 rushing yards per game. Ja'Marr Chase is in despite the back issues this week. Chase took a hard fall last week and has been questionable all week this week. But, yeah, he's good to go as part of a healthy Bengals offense. No word yet on whether or not Ja'Marr Chase is on a snap count. Chris Godwin is expected to play. He'll be facing a middle-of-the-pack Titans secondary. Godwin leads all Tampa Bay targets by a couple, 62 over Mike Evans, 60. And judging by the performance we saw from the Buccaneers secondary last week, getting torched by the Texans, I actually love the wide receiving core situation and the passing offense in general for the Bucs. I make the same argument with the Commanders all the time. They're going to have to be high-powered and possibly throw it 50 times a game to keep up if they want to stay competitive. And the number one target in Godwin is going to reap the benefits of that. KJ Osborne, along with Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, out for this week. This leaves plenty of opportunity against the Saints for guys like Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. Hawkinson looks like he's going to play. He was questionable when I woke up, but we're seeing expected to play status next to his name now. Desmond Ridder remains the backup in Atlanta. Not big news here. Taylor Heineke expected to be the guy going forward. No huge shocker there against the Cardinals. Optimal matchup this week. If you're in a pinch, go get Heineke. No Cam Akers means there's going to be an expanded role for Alexander Mattison. Not much of a difference here, but Akers was getting a few touches per game. More usage than Ty Chandler was. That was the secondary back behind Alexander Mattison before. So there is that. And Robert Woods for the Texans. He's in this week. I'm still really trying to figure out what clump of names we can rely on as a part of this Texans receiving core. Obviously, we have Dalton Schultz. Obviously, we have Tank Dell. And obviously, we have Nico Collins. With Nico Collins out and Robert Woods in, he should see an increase in targets. So, yeah, we've got that. Keep popping those questions in, folks. We will keep going through some more options. If we look here, Brandon Cooks against the Giants seems tempting. But again, as the point was brought up by, who brought that up before? I think it was Blurpy. Yeah, being a blowout game and the Cowboys may run the ball a ton. I would not love this. Brandon Cooks has had a couple of nice performances, but for the most part, yeah, tough to trust. Inconsistency. We've only seen north of 5 targets once. So actually, I'm going to backtrack on this one, specifically because of the matchup against the Giants. Maybe he'll get a couple catches early, but that's going to be phased out of the game. Darius Slayton, however, okay, looks to lead the Giants in receiving again against a team that is projected to blow out New York. Well, all of a sudden, maybe the Giants go throw heavy, and we've got a situation on our hands here. All right, folks, I'm going to take a quick not 5 minute. We'll call it 1 minute break. I will be right back. I just got to go check on something. Keep popping those fantasy football related questions in the chat here. All right, apologies on that, folks. We've got some more questions in here. Elijah, good to see you, man. Asking who you got this week, James Cook or Deontay Johnson at flex. Assuming this is PPR, Elijah, I'm going to actually look at James Cook because of the strength or lack thereof of opposition. This one stuck out to me earlier. I always try and see who's got the worst on a yards per carry basis rushing defense in the league. It's Denver, who James Cook is facing off against in prime time. So yes, we have to wait until Monday night. But I feel pretty good about him going up against a team allowing 5.4 yards per carry. So I don't really like looking at total rushing yards allowed because then that gets into game script. And all of a sudden, if you lose a lot of football games and you're going up against a team that's up multiple possessions, of course they're going to run the ball a lot. Maybe they'll have 120 rushing yards a game as opposed to 100 given up per game. But this averages tell everything. And 5.4 yards per carry given up against somebody like James Cook, who's been relatively involved, just has kind of had some shady luck. Also on a team that's been pretty pass-heavy in Buffalo. Deontay Johnson, we just talked about going up against, I'll take him over Calvin Ridley every day of the week right now, but going up against a Packers secondary that's been pretty stout. It's more so been the run defense that has been poor. I'm feeling a little bit better about James Cook. I actually like the odds of a touchdown against that weak rushing defense in Denver. MA Football Guys saying, one last question, man. Laporta, Ingram, or Kincaid at tight end? All right, so Ingram going up against the 49ers, Kincaid going up against the Broncos, and Laporta going up against the Chargers. Against that pass defense of the Chargers, giving up a league-high 286 yards per game. They get into a lot of shootouts. I'm feeling pretty good about Laporta. If we don't go with Laporta, let's go with Kincaid. He's been seeing more usage as of late. We'll back it up here. Eight targets, 7 targets, 11 targets, going up against the Broncos. Weaker opposition. Only 1 touchdown, yet this is half PPR. He is tight end 18. So not touchdown reliant, seeing a decent amount of volume. If we look at Laporta, had a really strong start. And he's been consistent all the way through. I really do think Laporta is going to be entering that top tier of tight ends. I have to do another tight ends rankings video soon, where we talk about those guarantees and then the sharp drop-off, right? There's your Mark Andrews, your George Kittles, your Travis Kelce, your TJ Hawkinson. You can maybe put Evan Ingram up there right now if you want to, but I think Sam Laporta is about to join that tier if he hasn't already. Constant volume, touchdown scorer. He's got 4 already. It's not unsustainable, but it's a nice pace to be on if he gets 8 or 9 this year. Yeah, I feel really good about Sam Laporta in this matchup, MA Football Guys. So that's who I'm going to roll with there. That is who I'm going to go with there. All right, hope all of you are doing well here on this Sunday morning. We're going to try and go live a little bit more this upcoming week. We broke the Carson Wentz news earlier on, and just having a lot of fun on here with you guys. So I'm going to try and get on midweek once or twice. Any video suggestions you have, we'll crank those out. I find that we've been getting the most receptiveness from, or the most reception from the waiver wire videos. So if you're enjoying those, let me know. I think those are great to put out Monday, Tuesday-ish ahead of that deadline so you can submit your claims on a first-come, first-served basis. Obviously, a lot of leagues, it's whoever has the worst record, but I mean, if it's you and a couple other people and at least you got your bid in, that's good to think about, right? That's good to know that you've got a decent chance. So we'll do waiver wire videos. Any other videos that you guys seem to like? Again, waiver wire has seemed to have the most feedback and the most positive feedback. We'll respond to those and we'll crank that content out as well. So just let me know if there's anything you'd like to see that we're not cranking out. I'm trying to kind of go off of what you have responded well to and not so well to, and beyond views. I'm looking at comments. Every single comment you guys have noticed I've tried to respond to. Yeah. MA Football Guy says, Corey, you're my football season now. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming in and supporting me. So anything I can do to help you, I'm happy to do. All right, folks, any other questions? Keep popping them in. We are here to help. You can kind of just look at whoever else is available. I'm in a 10-team half PPR here. kind of gauge some people and go over their matchups. These are names that may be popping up for you. Trey Palmer is a great dynasty pickup. When you look at the Mike Evans situation and when you look at the fact that this is a 6th-round rookie who, all things considered, I would say the Buccaneers are getting a pretty decent value out of. I did throw up a video a couple of days ago. Was it yesterday? It was yesterday, actually, on Dynasty Fantasy Football pickups. So let me know in the live chat, do any of you play Dynasty Fantasy Football? And if so, I will start to throw out some more of this Dynasty content. I threw up 10 pickups specifically for Dynasty, and Trey Palmer is one of them. Bright future, decent production for his draft capital. He's tracking for about 300 to 400 yards through the air. He's tracking for 4 touchdowns. But the big thing with him, right, is the Mike Evans contract. Mike Evans was not extended ahead of this year, is expected to be a free agent. If we look on SpotTrack, and this is the key right here, right? Unrestricted free agent. That's what he's going to be going into 2024. Those of you wondering the difference, a restricted free agent means that other teams can submit their bids for you, but let's say in Mike Evans' case, the Bucs can match that offer. So if the Bears come in and say, Mike Evans, we want you, we'll give you $11 million for a year. And the Bucs can come in and say, we're going to give you $12 million for a year. And if there are no other offers that can beat that, Mike Evans is still a Buc, or he can retire. So the fact he's an unrestricted free agent means he can go test the market. It doesn't matter if the Buccaneers are offering him $100 million for 3 years. If he wants to go to the Saints and the Saints are offering him $7.5 million for a year, and he feels that he has a better chance to win with the Saints, or whatever is his pull, whatever is his inspiration or his motivation for leaving and wanting to go somewhere else, if his needs are fit somewhere else and are met somewhere else, Mike Evans can leave. He's an unrestricted free agent. That's going to open up chances for guys like Trey Palmer. That's going to open up chances for guys like Cade Otton. And Cade Otton is somebody else I'll talk to you guys about. This is somebody who's a little further along the line. This isn't just a dynasty pickup. I honestly think that Cade Otton is a smart pickup in fantasy in general. In there for nearly every snap, taking over that spot for Rob Gronkowski. We saw some decent upside from him last year. Really, towards the tail end of the season, we got some more consistency out of him. Got 5 here, 10, 7, 6 targets. The occasional down game, had a nice stretch in the middle here. But, oh my goodness. I mean, could you imagine if all of a sudden Mike Evans leaves? Mike Evans becomes an unrestricted free agent, dips. I mean, let's just look at the pecking order here. I would say we have a large enough sample size to do so. By the way, love Cade Otton against the Titans secondary this week. Should be another throw-heavy game for the Buccaneers, considering the lack of production we've seen out of their defense. Yeah, so if we go from a targets perspective, the third option here is Cade Otton. Now, again, this is assuming, right, that the Buccaneers don't go out and spend some more draft capital, a first, second, third rounder, on a wide receiver who would then jump Trey Palmer and or Cade Otton. But right now, as it stands, Mike Evans is going to be an unrestricted free agent last year. The Bucs showed no interest in signing him. This touchdown upside, 5 of 12, and this target share, which would nearly be, it's a little over 22%. That's going to go to somebody else. And the tertiary target on this team right now on this pass-heavy offense is Cade Otton. The defense looks like crap, so all of a sudden the offense needs heavy throwing volume to keep up. We've got Baker throwing 32, 33 times a game. That should go up if the defense keeps folding. But I think there's a lot of opportunity here with Cade Otton. There's a lot of opportunity here with Trey Palmer in Dynasty. Cade Otton's more of a move the needle right now for you type of guy, specifically in this tight end market that lacks consistency. So we're seeing here in PPR, we've got 13, we've got 6.7, we've got 9. We've had a nice little stretch here where he's been seeing more volume. All right, folks, we will run through the announcements from the beginning of the stream one more time for those of you who have just dropped in. Justin Jefferson out for the week. Kyler Murray in for this week. He has gone 11 months without playing football, so we got to keep that in mind when it comes to our expectations. He'll be operating with a healthy Marquise Brown. Was the quarterback 3 back in 2020 with DeAndre Hopkins, prime DeAndre Hopkins, so I don't think he'll get back to that point, but this is somebody with plenty of rushing upside. We're going to put him up there with guys like Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen when it comes to rushing upside. He's averaging over 500 rushing yards per season despite the injuries that we've seen. Jamar Chase is in this week despite the back issues. Haven't seen anything about any type of a snap count. Chris Godwin's expected to play. KJ Osborne out for this week. This opens up opportunities for guys like Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, who's also expected to play. Desmond Ridder remains the backup in Atlanta. Taylor Heineke, a nice plug-and-play this week against the Cardinals for sure. Cam Akers, nada for this week. Alexander Mattison, more opportunity considering that Akers is more of an involved secondary option to Mattison compared to somebody like Ty Chandler. Robert Woods is in for this week. And again, if we go back to the Atlanta situation, I do like Taylor Heineke if you are in a pinch. If you have Josh Allen, if you have Jalen Hurts, if you have Matthew Stafford, if you've got Tua Tagovailoa, no, this guy isn't going to go and light the world on fire, but he's middle of the pack. He's going to get the job done, and he has an above-average projected total against this Arizona team relative to the past weeks where he wasn't even involved. He will need to get involved early and often. Saying he's avoidable this week, I kind of disagree, to be honest. As long as there's not a ton of rushing touchdowns early on and Bijan Robinson doesn't go nuts, game script-wise, then there's no need to pass. But I do think Kyler and the Cardinals make it close. Secondary has been anything but great. All right, folks, I think that's all I've got for this week. If you have any other questions in the next 37-ish minutes, I'll have my phone on me. You got to go jump to a work event. But I'm always working, always making sure that I am tending to you guys and answering any last-minute questions that you have. So any way that I can help, please, please, please don't hesitate. Otherwise, I'm Corey. This is Armchair Fantasy Football, and I wish you the best of luck here in Week 10.